Greetings, heroes and force users of all ages, and welcome back to Inside the Tauntaun, a podcast in the multiverse of fandom. As always, I'm Dino Nicandros. I'm joined by Alyssa Simmons.
Hello.
And Daniel Dawson.
Hello there.
And if you notice a slight decrease in audio quality, we are facing some adversity. My microphone no longer works, and I'm on my parents' delightfully efficient Wi-Fi. But we're glad you're here, and we're excited because we are talking today about Marvel Studios' first animated series, What If, on streaming on Disney Plus. This is episode 1. What If Captain Carter Were the First Avenger? Directed by Brian Andrews, written by A.C. Bradley, and by God, we're Marvel fans.
I don't know who you are or where you came from.
I am Iron.
I thought they smelled bad. On the outside.
Smells like a new car in here.
Inside the Tauntaun, this is our opening song. Alyssa, Daniel, Dino, talking nerd stuff, come along. Inside the Tauntaun podcast, please like and subscribe.
Oh, wow.
You said something at the end there, but your internet cut out. So it's like, we're really fan.
I don't know what kind of fan you are. I'll just have to use my imagination, I guess.
Are you a General Electric fan? Are you a...
No.
If only all of you knew what we were contending with trying to record this episode.
We really, really wanted to do it.
Yeah.
If you've ever what I sound like on the actual point, near the point of rage, this is it.
This is it.
Technical things are so frustrating. Yeah.
But
let's talk about this.
Yeah, what isn't frustrating is Marvel Studios knocking the crap out of their first animated attempt.
Yes, there is no feces left. They've knocked the crap out of all of it. Mm-hmm.
And feel free to disagree with me, but for a long time,
I'm sorry.
Well, you can leave.
Bye, Daniel.
You're allowed to disagree, but you can't be here.
Whoa.
For a long time, DC kind of cornered the market on animation, and I would argue they might have had, that might be where their leg up was on Marvel.
Sure.
The Batman animated series comes to mind. We all saw it.
Yeah,
classic.
So honestly, that was a masterpiece.
And then the Justice League shows, and if you were into like Teen Titans and stuff like that.
The current Harley Quinn series is amazing. It's so good.
And some of their films, their standalone animated films, The Killing Joke, and just like really dark and gritty, if you want to use that word. But yeah, I have to say, Marvel, for dipping its toe in the water, and this being episode 1, I mean, wow, it's
they came out
a sight to behold.
They came out guns blaring, like boom boom bam. They have all of the bells and whistles. Like, I mean, they said we're gonna go big or go home, and they have
no intention of going home.
No, not at all. They've already got a season 2 on the way, so apparently definitely not going home.
Geez. Yeah, honestly, after watching the trailer, I was a little unsure, like how I would like the animated, version of these Marvel storytellings.
Sure. Just like in the style, you mean?
Yeah, I think just in this, in a similar way to how I felt about Clone Wars. Honestly, I just was like, I'm not sure. But after this first episode, I can safely say that I don't feel that way. Yeah, it's so cool to see these very comic like shots drawn in full animated form. And
you know what it kind of reminded me of Spider-Verse a little bit.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Just in this side, like in the sense that they really tried to capture that comic book style, like cartoony look.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the frame rate.
Yes.
Like they purposefully slow the frame rate down to make it look a little more choppy, like
well, so you can actually get like a moment or two in each, little shot.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, like that's that little part of the comic strip. Like that's
Totally.
so cool.
Totally.
Well, and particularly the montage of hers when she's you see her in different engagements with Hydra, and it mirrors the one Steve has with the Howling Commandos in Captain America: The First Avenger. And
that shit was so dope.
It was
for the
so
first
cool.
time, it was so dope. And for the first time, it felt like, as you were saying, Melissa, like Captain America, or Captain Carter in this case, really was jumping off the page, and the unbelievable feats he pulls off in the comic book, while their depiction of Steve Rogers in the movie was as good as possible, there's something animation does that live action simply can't, and let's take the comic book and just animate it.
Yeah, I think that there's something really cool and special, and it definitely feels like a love letter to the What If comics.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, which I think, Marvel does a great job. We've talked about this before of, paying homage to the original source material, but also exploring other things, combining characters, that kind of thing.
Letting us be a little more surprised.
Yeah, where this is really cool and interesting and new, I think, for Marvel.
Yeah, I love it.
It is, and it's and by their own admission, it's no accident this came out right after Loki. And
oh wow, yeah.
Well, and haven't they already confirmed that there are some elements from the show that will end up in their other they didn't say, I don't think they said what, but they said that other characters from these episodes may show up in other.
There's been a suggestion they hope, they use the word hope.
That is a key word.
I see the fact that Doctor Strange comes out next year.
Yeah.
I've already pushed my chips to the middle of the table, and I think we will see Captain Carter and Doctor Strange in a Multiverse of Madness.
Would be cool.
Because they're hinting at her showing up in a season 2 that was already announced. So for whatever reason, she seems to be the connective tissue,
right,
for whatever they're doing here, at least in some degree.
You just blew my mind just now, because I'm jumping ahead because I know you're going to get into like the show as but the fact that she like literally goes, like she chases a monster down into another dimension, like that could be her gate, her window into into the Multiverse of Madness movie.
I mean, how many times did they say? I think they said multiverse like 3 times.
They said it a lot.
In this first episode.
The Watcher himself said it.
Numerous
times. Yeah.
It's cool. I don't, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Have we ever had like a true narrator of like a Marvel storytelling?
No.
Not in the current MCU, I don't think. No.
So that's pretty cool.
It is, and the Watcher is voiced by Jeffrey Wright. And a little background on the Watchers. So they're a race of beings, but you think of them as gods, and their job is they're omnipotent, but their job is to literally just do that, watch. They're not allowed to interfere. They're not allowed to mess with anything. And there's a long.
My question is that they're not allowed to, but can they?
Well, he actually says, I can't,
there's
won't.
a line. Yeah, I can't, I won't. Yeah,
I can't, I won't. But if you were to follow the Watcher's history, so it's a bit of a rabbit hole, but the father of Jeffrey Wright's Watcher, and this is in the comic books, the reason they have the rule you can't interfere is because he ended up destroying a world or several worlds, and something bad happened. So they're basically supposed to just be kind of benevolent observers. And that's
do they ever explain the why behind that? Like, are they there to like be, like taking are they taking notes? Are they teaching anybody about what they find?
Sure.
I mean,
well, so the Watcher Jeffrey Wright is presumably playing. It's noted in the comics that he likes to bend the rules a little bit, and if he can help, say, Earth, kind of like, there's something coming, look out. He'll do that.
Well, I'm right by saying that this particular, like, there's numerous Watchers, and the one that we have narrating the show, What If, is the one that is designated for our universe, the 616 universe, right?
I believe that's, well,
like there's a Watcher
I don't know,
for each universe, maybe.
But we're in different. Yeah, maybe. But he's kind of an observer of the multiverse, so I don't know if they're.
Right.
I don't think they're assigned to. Maybe it breaks down that way, but he's kind of narrating us literally through the multiverse here.
Right. Right.
So I don't know what that breakdown looks like, but if one of you diehard folks out there knows the answer to that, please let us know.
Come on, Die Hard.
I love their little intro as the Watcher is giving us a monologue, kind of explaining his role and his purpose, and you see
Twilight.
I guess a prism. It's kind of this broken prism,
mirror-like situation.
And you see a lot of the characters we've come to know in familiar scenarios, but then it begins to morph, and we see what presumably is little previews for the upcoming episodes. And
probably
there's I had to pause and zoom in, and thankfully people have placed screenshots online, but you can see Loki at the United Nations, walking into the United Nations. We've seen the preview of Killmonger saving Tony Stark in the desert. T'Challa being taken by Yondu. And then there's like really quick cuts. You see Obadiah Stane, who was the villain from the original Iron Man.
Yeah.
The Collector, Captain Marvel.
How many episodes are we getting again? Do we know?
9.
Only
There were
9?
supposed to be 10, but they moved the 10th one. I believe the 10th one is going to be the first episode of the second season, I think I read.
Interesting. Okay. It's so funny. We're all like...
with the opposite of what we're saying about Bad Batch.
Yeah, I was literally just gonna say that. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Too many episodes in this one. They're like,
there's
only 9.
Oh gosh.
Well, and I think we say that because we've already seen the format of the first episode. They literally condensed they changed Captain America and then condensed the whole movie into probably under half an hour worth of story if you don't include the credits. Like it's.
I actually got a question about that for you, or maybe this is more of an opinion question. Because it was really hard for me to separate myself from having already seen, and actually relatively recently seen, Captain America the movie. Do you guys think that they did a good enough job telling the story without having seen that previous film? Like, without having known like all the things that happen in the film, like does it sort of stand on its own?
I think that it does, but I think that you need to have seen the movies and know a lot about the characters that you're asking.
I mean, I guess
you're asking the question, what if about?
Yeah, because like half the fun of watching the show is having already watched.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. And this is where Marvel has explicitly said, yes, this is canon. Yes, this will directly be referenced or influence other properties, but it's still not a must-see.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because whatever they introduce here is going to be explained in whatever film or TV show a character ends up in anyway. So this really is just a love letter, not just, that's reductive, but it's a love letter to these movies and
a love letter to
and to super fans and to Marvel geeks, and particularly people who grew up with comic books, because this is
Oh yeah.
such a comic booky thing to do.
Comic booky.
Like,
absolutely. Some of the I just wanted I don't own any of the 1977 run of the What If comics, which is how it originated. But some of the titles are like so specific, and it really I really love it, and it really makes me giggle. It's like what if the Avengers had fought evil during the 1950s? It's like
fought evil.
Yeah.
That's
that
like very that's very not
Mhm.
specific.
What if Jane Foster had found the hammer of Thor?
Cool.
Like
we're gonna get the
we're
answer
gonna
to
get
that.
that. We're gonna get that. But yeah, I loved that. Like, what if Rick Jones had become the Hulk? Like,
fun.
They're just like so inventive, and so yeah. If those are any indication, all the craziness that is ahead, I'm super excited.
Yeah, same.
It is amazing how much of the episode does mirror that movie, and the whole
truly.
point of this series is that not a ton of things are different, but there's one inciting incident that makes the branch timeline or universe.
I love how simple it is too. It's not like
and it's just a moment.
Yeah,
So like
just one moment.
So the attack in the laboratory, Steve kind of gets taken out. His colonel, who's Tommy Lee Jones in the movie, gets shot. And in the panic, they have, Peggy jumps in. They're screaming for Stark to do it, and he's like, "No, I'm
the buttons guy."
I'm the buttons guy. Science and bullets don't mix. But it's amazing that just what's a split second in reality just absolutely changes.
Just because she decided to not go up to the booth, she was like, "Nah, I'm gonna stay."
Yeah, she said she was gonna stay down there.
Yeah.
And
it just like makes your imagination run wild, because like in your own life, like how many times have you had like those little simple decisions and wondered, like, had I crossed the street, like how much would my life be different, So fun and spooky to think about too sometimes.
For sure.
And it's, as we said, so many MCU actors returned to voice their characters, and it's so cool that Stanley Tucci was voicing Dr. Erskine. And Dominic Cooper was back as Howard Stark, the young Howard Stark. And much of this plays out still the same way, even with Peggy, just the way it's shot. You have Howard lowering his sunglasses as she emerges from the capsule, and
they did an amazing job, like with the frame by frame kind of recreation. Some of these scenes, very, very, very fun. And
she's buff as hell.
Oh my god!
For a split second, when she first started talking, I was like, "Is her voice lower? Did they make her like sound like she's on like roids?"
They pumped testosterone into her. That's what they did.
Yeah, that's it.
But no, that
She's
was just
got hairy pits.
That was my mind playing tricks on me. But
there's the one moment that made me absolutely laugh out loud was when Howard Stark was like, "I'd call this an absolute success," that immediately cuts to
this is a failure
to Colonel Flynn. He's like, "This is an absolute failure."
So freaking funny. There was a couple of moments like that in this show that also, same kind of thing. Where's he was like, "I won't tell you anything." And she's like, he told me everything.
He told me everything. Yeah.
He told me everything.
That's
so
great.
Good.
But it's interesting they're approaching Peggy from the perspective of her being a woman,
right?
Being the factor that makes her unfit to serve, whereas Steve is because he was skinny and small and sickly. And but that parallel runs nicely, and it keeps its poignancy, even though it's a different subject entirely. What I think is super interesting, and it dawned on me the second time I watched it. So after she's transformed and after the whole thing goes down in the laboratory, you can see that she's getting blood work done. And Steve and her are having a conversation, and he makes kind of a glib comment about, "Well, you could be on the USO tour." Because that's what Steve does in the film. But I couldn't help but think about Isaiah Bradley. Just the blood test, all the blood work being done, and the stuff they subjected him to, and this is just but a taste of of the government being very interested in this, and also basically using her as a human pincushion because they don't want her to be this. So it's like you are the guinea pig. We're going to use your blood to replicate it,
and we'll make like actual super soldiers, not the pesky female kinds.
Yeah, idiot girls,
stupid lady.
You have cooties. You're unfit for service. And then we get another great parallel scene where Peggy is just pissed as hell, so she takes it out on a punching bag and mirrors Steve again, almost shot for shot, completely annihilating one of these giant bags. We then cut to Taunsberg in Norway, and this is where Hydra is attempting to track down the Tesseract. Now, you'll remember from Avengers Endgame that Taunsberg also serves as the location of New Asgard, where the Asgardians resettle on Earth. So that's a cool nod and wink. And more or less, we see Red Skull, and he acquires the Tesseract in much the same way. And he is voiced here, it should be noted, by Ross Marquand, who stepped in as Red Skull in Infinity War and Endgame when Hugo Weaving decided to not join us for the party.
What a dick!
But Ross Marquand is actually unbelievable at...
he's perfect.
Just in general, his voiceover work at replicating other actors' voices, he's very good at it. And he does a very good Hugo Weaving.
It's just one thing to be able to like recreate somebody's voice, but to also be able to like act really well within that voice. It
doesn't sound like an impression.
That is a challenge.
It's really hard. I've gotten a couple of voice replica auditions, and it's exactly hard for the reason that you said, Daniel, because you have to be being them, but also still inhabiting the character and acting and making
honestly
choices and
feeling.
Well, and not to wrap our collective time at Disneyland into this, but isn't that what kind of happened with Frozen to a degree?
To a certain degree. Yeah,
I think any show that runs for a super long time has a tendency to become like, this is no slam on Wicked in the way that they put up Wicked, but it is done in a very similar way. I mean, you are a little cog in the piece, and you watch that cog, you learn the cog, and you've got to fit into the exact same shaped cog as the person before, or else you don't have the gig.
The machine
right. If the color is green originally, you're allowed to paint with maybe different shades of green, but it still has to be green.
Don't get any crazy ideas, okay?
Don't get any yellow in there. You bastards.
No.
It's just unacceptable.
That's so kudos to Ross Marquand.
Yes. In short.
Well done, Ross. Hail Hydra.
What?
So we get great shots of Peggy taking matters into her own hands, and this is where it kind of starts to diverge a little bit. I'm jumping ahead a bit to kind of explain this, and in that they are able to acquire the Tesseract before, or rather, stop it in transit to Red Skull.
Ladies got to get it done,
Yeah, and
efficiency.
We get another familiar Hydra face, Arnim Zola, and he's voiced again by Toby Jones.
Yes.
And Peggy smashes her way into the truck in which she's on, and she's able to acquire the Tesseract.
And him.
And it's put to use in favor of the good guys in this episode. So things changed quite a bit there.
Yeah.
And that was just one of her kick-ass montages. The other is when she goes to free our old friends, the Howling Commandos. And you'll remember the Howling Commandos are Steve Rogers' Steve becomes the leader of this group in Captain America, and our old friend Bucky is among them, and again voiced by Sebastian Stan. And you get a lot of those great comic book shots that you mentioned, Alyssa, in this montage, and one of them being her kicking down the door of the of whatever base they're entering, and it's just that iconic shot of Steve with the gun and the shield, and replicated almost entirely. Very cool.
And her ripping off the gate.
And so going back a little bit, it's I loved watching Peggy for her powers in real time, and just
like
this show, yes, you would think because it's animated, it's geared to a much younger crowd, and this episode dispelled that notion really quickly by how violent she is with these Nazis. I mean,
that being said, there are two things: A, kids are pretty desensitized these days, but also B, they're Nazis, and like literally,
it's violent. It's just
I mean, when she like
there's no blood, but she's
when she uses her shield to like crash through the front of that plane, like repeatedly is like coo, and then she yanks the guy out. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I don't think that guy made it.
He's not alive.
Barely certain he passed away.
Nazis deserve this. Doesn't make it easy to watch.
Right.
Because it's like this is like visceral, Cap. This is like blood on the shield if they depicted blood, in a cartoon.
Potentially,
it would be all over her.
I also thought this was interesting, because obviously we see in Captain America First Avenger, we see Steve, discovering his strength and his power, and he hadn't even fought in the military yet. Like, he'd been to training, but he hadn't fought. But like, this was cool to see Agent Carter, or Captain Carter rather, because she had been, working for the government, and like for years and years and years, like this had been her goal to end the war. And to bring peace. So that was a cool extra layer to watch somebody with all of that, kind of military background as well.
And then she I mean, we're getting ahead, but she did. She achieved her goal.
Yeah.
She ended the war.
And I mean, exactly to your point, Alyssa. So she's a natural fit for her new role as a Captain America adjacent, because as you said, her background, which is much more sophisticated than Steve's ever was. So I could see why they would want to use her as I said before, a connective tissue in this kind of multiversal story, and it would not surprise me her showing up elsewhere. So there's a really cool moment when she does free them. They give her a "let's hear it for Captain Carter."
Yeah, that was cool.
Let's hear it for Captain America. I was like, yeah. But when she's freeing them and they are escaping, Steve is not sidelined in this episode. He, in fact, arrives in what is now deemed the first Iron Man suit, affectionately deemed the Hydra Stomper.
We love that.
Powered by the Tesseract.
Whoa. Okay, now this is something I missed. Is the Tesseract actually inside the suit, or is just powered by it, kind of?
I thought it was in there.
I thought the cube was like where the arc reactor would be.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But maybe you're right, Daniel. Maybe it's like powered. Maybe he
they're just using it
powered
to charge
something else. Yeah, I don't know.
So yeah, it's really cool that Steve kind of gets to take on a new role, and it changes his dynamic a little bit with Peggy, but not really. They just kind of reverse roles. I don't even know if it's a full reversal, but it's they're having a conversation in a bar, and it sounds just like a conversation Steve and Peggy would have had, but she's trying to convince him of his worth, and he's doing the same for her. So it's they're on a lot more level ground now, but even though she's the super soldier, he's still in a place to reassure her that
Well, yeah, they both said it in that scene where she's like, she sort of let it slip, like she's just like, "You're my hero," and she's like, and he was just like, "No, you're my hero too," and it was like, "Oh,
It was very sweet, very, very sweet.
Yeah, that was sweet.
Yeah, and the point of that scene was like, you're not reduced to your gender, and you're not reduced to your size. You are so much more than that.
Yeah.
And
we love
really,
the
really great. It was charming and impactful, and
I'm impacted.
I'm impacted. But I think it just speaks to like Steve and Peggy being kind of the only relationship that Marvel absolutely nailed from a romantic standpoint.
Yeah,
There's not many of them, but it's one that it just transcends time and space very clearly. Like it's every time they get back together, I'm like, oh,
it just makes sense.
Damn it.
Yeah.
It's so good.
The Hydra Stomper reminded me a lot of the suit that Bruce that Tony makes for Bruce.
Totally.
Yes. Yeah, the Hulkbuster.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he originally makes it for himself as a Hulk deterrent.
Yeah.
Right.
But then he ends up like putting
Veronica the Hulkbuster. And then,
yes.
And
Veronica, that's it. Yeah.
and then Bruce has to wear it because Hulk's being a dick.
Yeah.
We discover that through intelligence that the Red Skull is headed to their base of operations. And Captain Carter designs an operation, and I loved this. This is one of my favorite war movies. She says, "Operation Where Eagles Dare," and if that doesn't mean anything to you, Where Eagles Dare was a war movie from 1968 with Richard Burton, and it's an Allied rescue mission. They sneak into a German castle.
Oh,
wow,
cool.
they were literally playing to an audience of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me and everybody's grandfather or World War II veterans.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I love that you knew that. Because that's a deep cut.
Yeah.
Well, sure. And it's so random, but the theme music to that movie is on a playlist I listen to fairly regularly.
Oh my God, amazing.
It's like, so that's so great.
Of course it is.
They attack this train. Steve is in his suit, and it's at this moment that the train, as the battle commences, the train explodes, and we think we lose Steve. And you know where my mind went during this?
I'm sure mine was the same.
Steve is going to be the new Winter Soldier.
Right,
that's what I thought.
That was
obviously.
what I thought too. I mean, we weren't exactly wrong. It seemed that was their intention, but
to kind of throw us off there. Yeah.
Well, and not even the show's intention, but the Red Skull's intention, because later on they do find him like at the Hydra headquarters, so they just caught him before they were able to mind warp him and make him into their weapon.
Oh, I also loved when Peggy pulled Bucky off from falling off.
Oh yes.
And he's like, my arm almost fell off.
Yeah, like, ha, that's funny.
Too soon.
Also, like, can either of you explain to me why he made so many jokes about fish in this episode?
I don't know. I don't know. I actually searched message boards for this. I stay off of them. I was like, somebody tell me.
Am I missing something? He made like 4 jokes about fish.
That's so weird because I don't remember that at all.
He said something, and I'm going to butcher it. I don't even remember what he said. It's something like, there's too few sardines in the can.
There was that. And then there was, what? There were easily 3 or 4 fish jokes.
And it was all from Bucky?
Yes.
Yeah.
How weird.
Is it a 1940s thing?
Probably.
Fish are hilarious.
They are so funny.
There's a recurring bit in How I Met Your Mother where Marshall like keeps trying to do stand-up, and the whole extent of his stand-up is just like, let's talk about how weird fish names are. He's like, mackerel, am I right? He just like says a bunch of fish names. It's so dumb. But it honestly reminded me of that.
That's funny. Well, see, fish are funny.
There you go.
Sure.
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 That's all the explanation you'll ever need.
But so we assume at this point Steve is gone. So Captain Carter has to, and knowing that the Red Skull was not on this train, they devise a plan to break into Hydra's. I'll call it Castle Hydra because that's basically what it is. I think it's in the Black Forest. Did they say it's in the Black Forest, or I don't remember.
Yeah.
So we catch wind here of a different end game for Red Skull. His plan here is different, or his means of achieving victory are different. Twist. And this is a big one. So Red Skull tells the Nazi general who is there with him on Hitler's behalf that he was going to be summoning a beast from another dimension to serve as Hydra's champion and bring victory to Hydra. Bouncing ahead a bit, but when Peggy and crew show up, he uses the Tesseract, which he managed to recover. He uses the Tesseract to open a portal,
and actually successfully opens it up.
Successfully opens it, and out comes this giant tentacled beast. And you really only see the tentacles.
In hindsight, like, what the fuck was he thinking? Like, what a stupid plan. Like, he really thought like he was gonna be like, hey there, interdimensional beast. Do you want to be our champion?
I'm in charge. Woo!
And Peggy even says that thing is growing so big it's going to devour Europe. And I go, okay, so Red Skull, what do you do after it's eaten Europe?
Sir, I have several questions.
I thought like world domination is the thing here, not like just.
Yeah.
You didn't think this one through.
No.
Yeah, no.
His plan in Captain America was a lot better. Just build a bunch of Tesseract weapons and kill everybody.
But I guess I guess in this sense, and this is probably what we, because it was like a very sped up version of the story, so we didn't get all the little bits and pieces in between. But perhaps because of Peggy's tenacity and her speed at which she was achieving all of these victories against him made him so desperate that he was willing to do like the nuclear option.
Right, and but I would argue like you're absolutely right. But his nuclear option in Captain America was to basically go nuke New York City.
Yeah.
Right.
And force the U.S. out of the war. It's like that.
This is like the more nuclear
proportional.
Right.
That was a more proportional escalation because that's like warfare. This is
right.
Okay, this thing's going to devour Earth, and you're going to be dead. So
we're turning this into a Lovecraftian
joke's on
horror.
Yeah.
It was very Cthulhu.
Yes, it is. I racked my brain thinking through the MCU. Did we ever briefly see a tentacled creature of this size? And nothing came to mind. So I went a bit
like from another. Now, okay, this is another thing because we talked about this before. Like there are multiverses, but then there are dimensions which allegedly exist outside of the multiverse.
Well.
Yes.
Well, it's the other way around. So every universe has its own set of dimensions.
Oh, that's not what.
So there's a nightmare dimension in every universe.
Oh, Jesus Christ. So
I know that's confusing, but just if you're keeping score at home.
Yeah, I am. I mean, because we're gonna have to, because it's about to get real crazy.
And I used this example when we first talked about it during Loki. It was like, so I used the dark dimension where Dormammu is. So there is, in theory, a Dormammu in every universe, and maybe they're not all the same. Yes.
Yeah, could be. Mm-hmm.
Yeesh.
So yeah, that's a thing. So I went and did some diving, and this beast seems to be coming from the pages of the comic books, specifically Doctor Strange, and this is where it is interesting. This beast is named Shuma Gorath, and if you are at home and you're listening to this, go Google Shuma Gorath, and it's this giant tentacled beast with a giant eyeball in the middle. And Doctor Strange first, I think the beast is introduced in was the early 1970s. It was a Doctor Strange comic in the early 1970s. And it's an interdimensional, horrifying being who, has the traditional goals of just devouring everything it gets its hands onto. There was a rumor, I think sometime last year, and it didn't mean anything to me at the time because I didn't know what this beast was, that Shuma Gorath is going to be in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
I mean,
and
I wouldn't doubt it.
And that this was their way of quietly, or not quietly, but introducing this interdimensional, I don't know if it's a multiversal hopping beast, but
well, here's the thing. I mean, if that is the case, well, so it would only make sense to me. Well, not necessarily, I guess, if the multiverse is sort of open and our Doctor Strange figures out a way to jump through dimensions, and I guess there's definitely a way that we could find this. What is it called again?
Shuma Gorath.
Shuma Gorath. And
rolls
also
off the tongue, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Shuma Gorath.
And also, and along with Peggy, with it,
Yep.
Well, they both ended up in a different universe.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't know exactly where. I think that they ended up in the dimension where he came from, right?
Presumably. I mean,
presumably.
Yeah. It's just odd that. Okay, we're skipping ahead, but we do need to address this. It is odd that when she quote unquote sacrifices herself and pushes Shuma Gorath back through the portal,
yes,
that they end up basically where the first Avengers movie begins.
Right.
A different version of it, but.
And she is seemingly, well, I guess it's still, we don't really know about how old she is or whatever, or how long she's been gone. She doesn't really say that, but.
Well, no, but Nick Fury says the war's been over for 70 years.
70 years.
Well, yes, yeah. Correct. But for her, so I guess my point is like when you're going to a dimension like the quantum realm, for instance.
It's only a few minutes.
Yeah. So time acts differently in different dimensions, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's why she hasn't aged. Not a lot of time has passed at all for her. But I'm just confused how she ends up there with like these scattered tentacles of Shuma Gorath. Did he return to where he was, and how did she get to Nick Fury's, where Nick Fury and Hawkeye are?
I'm assuming that, they just figured out how to
somewhere along the way. Yeah, she. Maybe
she's like, oh, the portal's back open again. Go.
Maybe it works similar to the quantum realm, or like when you see whenever Asgardians get beamed back up to Asgard, how you can kind of fall out of that kind of funnel of energy, time, space. The Bifrost. Maybe when she's pushing him through the portal, they end up in separate places.
Yeah,
he keeps traveling, but she falls out.
Yeah,
I think that's probably. Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's trippy.
It's going to
whatever it is,
trippy.
Yeah.
It will be confusing, and we'll be talking about it for years to come.
But we skipped a good bit here, where they arrive at the castle before Red Skull opens this portal, and they find Steve has been captured, and that's how Red Skull acquired the Tesseract. But he's been captured. He has the armor.
I guess that's the confirmation that the Tesseract was
in the suit.
Inside the suit, yeah.
Yes, that does answer our question for us. So cool that the Tesseract is the first arc reactor.
We love that.
Neat. So they set him free and basically jumpstart the suit like a giant battery, and with a giant battery and
with just enough juice
to make a dent. And they show up, the portal opens, and comes Shuma Gorath. Red Skull gets crushed again. Moron. We can't state this enough. I just don't get it from his perspective.
But it makes for such a funny moment, though.
It's like, what the? And that's exactly. I mean, what is in the title of this series? What? And so Peggy's moment or decision to to push Shumagorath through is very similar to Steve landing the giant Hydra plane in the ice. And also of note, I made a note of another funny laugh out loud moment for me was when they are rescuing Steve and Bucky's like, hurry up, we don't have all day.
Yeah.
And a nice little riff on I could do this all day.
It's great. Yeah. Just great.
Like, oh, you guys.
Just great.
You and your writing.
Your writing's very smart.
Your writing. But yeah, their final conversation is just inverted. And she's like, you owe me a dance on Saturday night. And off she goes.
And you'll never get that dance.
That's where my mind.
Who knows?
That's where my mind is racing. Okay, like the multiverse is going to break my brain. My brain is already. I'm in trouble as we speak because I'm just racing through possibilities of like Steve went back through time to put the Infinity Stones back, and then it ends up with Peggy, and now there's a version of Peggy out there running around the multiverse.
And I guess it's possible that if like at least in this particular universe that like if the only like the change that it changes, Peggy's story and the people that are surrounding her a lot, but maybe the events of Endgame still happen, maybe slightly different, but they still there's still Thanos, there's still a quest for the Infinity Stones, and eventually Peggy has to go back and return the stones, and maybe makes the same choice and goes back and spends time with her man.
But what's crazy is like, and that's what the show is set up, is the absolute absurdity of what we're about to witness. And that one moment, she has now placed herself in the Loki role of Avengers, presumably, because when she shows up at the base with Nick Fury and Hawkeye, and even down to the line, Nick Fury's like, drop the sword, which he's like, when he sees Loki, he's put down the spear, and she's the interdimensional being that they don't know what to do with.
Right.
And it'll change everything that happens as we know it in the Avengers movie. And how does that change the calculus of everything else that happens in the Infinity Saga? And it's just too much to handle.
It did. Am I crazy? I think I might have to go back and watch it again. But it seem like Nick Fury knew who she was when she came out?
Kind of. I mean, it at least dawns on him that she's,
because he does say like, oh yeah, the war has been over for 70 years.
Right. And then they kind of managed two things. So this is a cross between that first scene in Avengers and then the post-credit scene in Captain America, where Steve ends up in modern New York.
Right.
He runs out into Times Square and there's Nick Fury and he said, that whole spiel. He basically gives that to her here.
Right.
But how this, and we will find out the answer to this, but how this changes everything from here on out, now that Loki isn't the inciting incident.
And we're getting a sequel for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So seemingly like it's either a continuation of her story or yet another what if scenario of her story. Yeah, I'm very intrigued, and my imagination is just on fire right now.
Yeah, I and every time somebody makes a new decision, yet another timeline splits off. So,
right.
Yeah. It's really trippy, and it can really make you feel like your brain is on fire.
And that you're so insignificant.
Well, yeah, that for sure. I think what I'm doing to kind of like calm myself down and being like, okay, well, wait, if this is the case, then what if, quite literally, what will happen with that character and that storyline and all of that? I'm sort of, since we are in the multiverse now, I'm trying to somewhat separate things if I can. If that makes sense.
You have to.
I know that there will be some like connective tissue that like is going to combine some stuff.
Sure.
But for me, I just sort of think like similar to like what we talked about in Loki with like all the different timelines kind of like running all stacked
Parallel.
on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So like eventually I think it will get to like the same outcome and like the same kind of like main stories I think that we know to be true.
Probably.
But like right now they're running like that. That's how I'm
parallel.
doing. That's how I'm doing it to make my brain not explode.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good point, because I think strategically from Marvel's perspective, and we talked about this a little bit about not devaluing everything that has already happened, Endgame, all of that, which Loki ran the risk of doing by saying this was all planned and I allowed it to happen. Kang saying, everything happened according to my design. But anchoring the story in the universe we know, the one that's been established, Earth 616, as it's called in the comics.
Yeah.
And then everything kind of happening around it, and the story being how it affects this primary timeline that we care about and that we've and that's why, to your point, Alyssa, I don't think they're gonna show us all these different possibilities, but not everyone is going to be relevant to
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
What we ultimately end up caring about.
Yeah, and this is canon for sure, but I think that like in the original What If comics, like, there are some pretty crazy things that like we know aren't really the way that things are.
Right.
Like, what if Spider-Man was a member of the Fantastic Four? Like, we know that he's not a member of the Fantastic Four. We know that their paths don't cross in that way.
Oh my God. But yeah, if you can imagine them trying to balance all of that in one cohesive story that makes us all care about. I mean, like, I think that a lot of people would just walk. They'd be like, nope, too confusing. Can't. I'm done. Thanks.
Well, and I think they will take the most, or what they deem the most important branch off Universal stories.
Yeah.
And when the time comes, and we're gonna do a separate episode on this, folks, because I'm not done reading it yet. But
Secret
I keep
Wars.
saying it. Yes, Jonathan Hickman. Just read. I didn't even read his Fantastic Four, which kind of starts the story. Go read. If you've got time on your hands and you want to dive into a comic book series, do what I did. Start with Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four and read it all the way through Secret Wars. And I think you have where we're going with this. And it's
madness. It's
madness. Well, but it is anchored in a primary, like, we are following the heroes of Earth 616, and they are encountering other people, but they're not necessarily being replaced as the primary storytellers.
Yeah.
Now, is this the same one that you were just saying to us over text that you think it's going to have a really not great ending?
So
he's reading the Avengers. Hickman's Avengers.
And I'm on the last bit of the last volume of it before Secret Wars, and I honestly don't think, and if you're listening to this and you've already read it, you know what happens, but it's not going to end well.
Yeah.
Like it's just like it goes from bad to worse.
Do you feel like whatever happens this happens before Secret Wars, so do you think that whatever maybe happens in Secret Wars sort of might at least
undo it?
Maybe undo whatever happens in that somehow?
Yes, I just look at this. If you thought like what happened in Infinity War was bad, which it was, this is just so much worse. And there was kind of a predictable answer in how you correct Infinity Wars. Like, you just need to get your hand on the Infinity Stones.
Right.
You can make anything happen.
Right.
There is no such mechanism here. And I won't explain any further, but like, it's just really bleak and sad.
Oh gosh.
We love
it's really awful.
Oh no.
Can't wait.
Oh boy.
So
we need more of that.
It's all going to end in destruction.
There's just not enough of the bleakness today. We just
and comic books are dark, folks. Like,
oh yeah.
Like, they are like really dark. It is a little bit of a spoiler.
I mean, they're
but not
colorful,
really.
but they're dark.
There's kind of one section I'm thinking of where Thanos and some of his Black Order join with a character we haven't seen in the MCU yet, Namor. He's usually Black Panther's foil. So they kind of take on a anti-hero role, but not really. Like they fashion themselves as the ones who can fix what's ultimately happening, because they don't have morals and they don't give a shit what happens.
Got it.
And so the governments of Earth actually okay their behavior, and they literally rape and pillage their way through the universe.
Oh my gosh.
Through the multiverse. And what they do to alternate versions of the characters we love is so disturbing. I mean, I would not let my kid read it.
Yeah.
And they enjoy it, and it's just awful. So
oh boy.
So the stakes, we're not running out of stakes here. They're getting really big, and all of that to say that What If is laying the groundwork for something that's probably 8 to 10 years away, honestly, as far as the movies go.
I believe
that nobody loves steak more than us.
Yeah, we love steak.
It's true. There was a good 4 weeks there where we had it
every weekend.
And these were meat, friends. When I say steak, like this was a cow.
These were large steaks. We raised the steaks, as it were.
But yeah, what do you have any kind of closing thought? Anything that struck you in episode 1 that you're excited to see them pull on that thread, or did you just enjoy the style of it? Or
I enjoyed definitely enjoyed the ride. I can't wait to see what happens next. I think it's seemingly pretty obvious what they're going to do with the next 2 episodes, because I think that we've pretty much all that we've seen from the previews is probably going to be the next couple of episodes.
Yes,
I can't.
T'Challa and
Tony Stark.
Which that I cannot wait for. This is Chadwick Boseman's final performance as Black Panther. He recorded this, so
yeah,
that'll be
right.
really.
Yeah,
although he's not really Black Panther here.
No, he's not. No, but
Star-Lord.
I love that we're gonna get to hear him. That's gonna be really, really cool and really special.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it, and I love like we said earlier, that it's just a simple, singular moment in these character stories that it goes slightly different, and that's where we jump off. I think that's super, super interesting, and it's something that's done in the comics a lot, and obviously, like you said, Daniel, it's something that happens in life. I mean,
sure,
I just think about it, like my wife and I grew up 5 minutes apart from each other and never met, went to the same acting competitions and choir festivals, and then literally we were just like ships in the night over and over and over again.
It's nuts.
And so I just, you think about that, and you think about if one person would have been like, oh, this is Alyssa, you know what I mean? Like probably wouldn't have, my life would not have been what it was,
Sure.
It's an interesting thing to think about.
Right. You would have gone on to kill. Yeah. You might have gone on to murder a whole bunch of people had you not met, who knows?
Orphanage of children.
I mean, probably that's the most likely. That's the most likely thing for sure.
That's right.
And formed a podcast called Inside the Wampa or something, or like the Wampa's Arm, or
the Wampa Pit.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah,
those are my final thoughts. Dino, do you have final thoughts?
Oh, also, just really quick, I was just really surprised at like how much they were able to pack into.
It was a lot of info.
A lot of stuff. It's great.
It was certainly not boring, and even though the runtime is kind of short, it actually didn't feel all that short. Like I felt like I got out of it what I needed.
Yeah, me too.
Special shout out to Josh Keaton in particular. He's a voice actor. He took over Steve Rogers in place of Chris Evans.
He did great.
And because most everyone else was voiced by their MCU counterpart, the potential pitfall of like that being something that takes you out of it. It's like, oh, that's not Steve. And I thought he did a great job. Like he didn't sound necessarily exactly like Chris Evans, but he didn't need to. Like he had the Captain America.
Yeah, he sounded
voice,
enough.
Whatever
he sounded
that is.
enough like him.
He blended in just fine. Yep.
I thought he did a really nice job, and
I can't wait to see his work as zombie version.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to his groans.
Brains, American brains.
Yeah, this just gets me excited for Marvel. It's like they're taking big old risks now, and they seem to be enjoying themselves doing it, which is so much fun. Like,
yeah,
I feel like even if they stub their toes somewhere along the way, which at this point just doesn't seem all that likely, but there might be one that we're not super into, but it's almost like they'll be forgiven for it because they've built so much goodwill, and it's like, oh, that one didn't work out so well, but you'll get them next time.
We'll definitely clip this moment right now so we can go back to it in case shit just really hits the fan. It's terrible.
Right.
The rest of it is just completely awful.
We show up to Shang-Chi on September 3rd and go, like, what happened?
What if this show was actually good?
Oh my gosh.
I need to that's a review somewhere.
Like, no doubt.
You could just go scour Rotten Tomatoes and you'll find one person. What if I gave a damn? It's like, groan.
So rude.
Yeah, great. Well,
I guess that's it.
That's it, I think.
That's it for episode 1.
What if this episode was over?
Well, you're about to find out. Also of note, you'll note we did not have a Bad Batch episode last week.
We didn't.
It was the first part of the finale. The second part being, we're recording this on Thursday. The second part will come out tonight. And you will get a 2-part. Well, we're putting 2 parts into one finale episode to discuss the end of season 1 of Bad Batch. You'll have that Monday.
Action.
And then the 3 of us recently saw Suicide Squad in theaters.
Oh my
and we're going to introduce a little DC into the mix here and talk about Suicide Squad. And you'll have that this coming week as well. On
talk
top
about
of what
a
if
multiverse.
We've got so much to do.
My God, we're so busy.
But stick with us, gang.
But yeah, we've got content for everyone out there that it could ever want content.
Indeed. Thanks so much for listening. This is Inside the Tauntaun, a podcast in the multiverse of fandom. I'm Alyssa Simmons.
And I'm Daniel Dawson.
And I'm Dino Nicandros.
May the force be with you.
Always.
See ya!
Inside the Tauntaun podcast, please like and subscribe.